Where are you? Right, just waiting for Tommy now. Connecting.
I was washing my hair, Phil.
Well, I thought you were either washing it or doing it. I know it takes a while.
Does everybody know that you don't need glasses?
No, these are my Foley glasses.
You just put them on.
No, I've got failing eyesight, so I'd be worried about that when it comes to looking at you putting.
Yeah, you'd never tell.
I know. Well, how are you doing anyway?
I'm good, yeah. Where are we, Phil? Are you stood up?
I'm stood up, yeah.
I like it. It's like you're doing like a TED talk or something.
Yeah, you could sort of allude it to that, yeah. Yeah.
It's better.
Whereabouts are you anyway? Have you got a robe on there? I could just picture you with a robe, actually.
No. I'm in a hoodie. I'm in the TV room, we call it, just to try and be in the quietest part of the house.
In the West Wing?
The West Wing, yeah.
Cool. Did you actually play golf today in that?
Yeah. Did you see that putt that Finno tweeted?
Yeah.
I boxed it.
It didn't look your best stroke, if I'm honest.
Well, it's hard to take the putter back or anything. The wind was blowing. I went bogey free for 9 holes.
That was pretty good, actually.
Yeah. I was trying for the last 3.
That was about an 8-foot putt with a 40-foot swing.
Yeah, it took me 3 shots to get to that point from about 60 yards, I think.
Right. Did you beat Finno?
Yeah, but Finno's swinging it better.
Well, I saw his swing the other week, actually, when he tagged in George Gankus, and I thought he'd have an epileptic fit watching it, but...
Finno's got... he had the long putter out today as well, the thing. It wasn't a good combo.
No, not with a 43-mile-an-hour wind.
No bueno.
Not good. Right, well, listen, mate, I appreciate you joining us tonight.
I appreciate you asking me, yeah.
Well, I've got to have you on here. You're a bit of a stud these days, aren't you? So, listen, I've got a load of questions, and I've had some good questions, so I want to try and get as many in as I can. So
good, yeah.
But basically, what have you been up to over lockdown? I know we were allowed out last week, back onto the golf course, but how did you sort of fill your time those 6 weeks where we were locked indoors? How did you make use of it?
I was pretty good, to be honest with you. I think, you travel a lot, so for us it's been amazing.
Your boyfriend's just logged in.
Oh, there he is. Little wave.
He might be getting jealous.
Well, I told him we were supposed to speak, and I said, I've got bigger fish to fry. I'm on with Phil Kenyon. But like you say, traveling wise, it's been amazing. Bonus time, with the family, it's been amazing to have a routine of just going to bed and waking up in the same bed at the same time. I'm lucky, we've got space in the house. We've got a nice my golf studio got finished, so I could spend some time in there. And I've enjoyed sort of there being no massive agenda. There's been no pressure time-wise on getting ready for anything. So anything you do is, it's not like everything you do is in preparation or there's a timeline on it. So, any practice you do or any balls you hit, any putts you hit, it's done with a much broader focus, and it's been nice that way.
Yeah, no, I can definitely relate to the sort of keeping in your own bed type of thing.
Yeah.
So just tell everyone a little bit about, I know you really appreciate this and it's nothing that you take for granted, but you were kind of fortunate in many ways that it actually got completed before lockdown. But just tell people what you managed to do at home in terms of the practice facilities that you've got there now.
Yeah, so I made we made a decision last year that wanted to just increase my facility really, and Astra Golf Studios, obviously, been doing all right, and I thought it was a perfect time. I kind of waited 28 years to be able to have something like that, and
you saved hard, to be fair to you, didn't you?
saved hard, yeah. And so got a HD golf simulator, have a Zen green stage, and it literally got sort of everything got finished and functional just before lockdown happened. So it was like, I got back from the players on the Saturday, say, or maybe it was the Saturday, and it was literally done that day. So it was like unbelievable timing.
Yeah,
and it has made a massive difference. Just that kind of time spent, and it's not as if I'll go in there and grind all day for like 10 hours just because I have it, but just anything that just having the opportunity to do it when I feel like it, hit some putts, hit some shots, it's made a big difference.
Anyone else got Jesus Walks by Kenyon playing one when Tommy on screen? I don't know.
Could be. I mean, that could be my walk-on music.
North London Golf Academy. Why HD and not Foresight or TrackMan?
I just so there's a guy in America, Chris, who spends a lot of time out there. I have a lovely relationship with him, and they're good to the pros out on the PGA Tour, and it just became the obvious choice really when I decided I was going to have one just from spending time with him a lot, and it's worked out great. Yeah, so it's just one of those things where I wouldn't know what's better, what's worse, or they're all
good,
so good, and so alike. So it was just that was first choice really, but good question.
Yeah. So what? Obviously, I mean, you said like you've not necessarily been like grinding all day in there, but just out of interest, then, like typically because you've been able to practice every day still.
Yeah.
Generally, like how much time would you have spent, and how have you sort of constructed that practice in your lockdown?
It just depends. I've not been. I've not been too hard on myself on that. I have to do an hour a day, 2 hours a day, or when I have gone in, I've had a good idea of. Well, I've been told what to do by my putting coach. So when I go, I've got like a good idea.
Like it.
Keep on top of technique. With the Zen green stage, you can make different breaking putts, and to be honest, I've had a really good time. I've got Mo and Oscar there putting. And just having like little putting comps on there and stuff, and like just getting into
they're allowed back in there now.
They're allowed back in, yeah. If they're watching on Instagram, they'll be fuming that you just said that. You just caught that. And routine work as well. Like I've basically, if you think of things you control, you can really strip down your routine and work on it. And I've been doing a lot of that in there, and a lot of basics, but a lot of things that. Nothing really, can replicate going out on a golf course in different conditions. But you can definitely do a lot of things that, that help you when you do get out there.
Yeah, I think like the green stage is great for that because you can.
It's an amazing piece of kit. Yeah, amazing.
Different breaking putts and stuff like that. Did you miss your studio at Thornby Hall? Yeah, I miss it a lot actually. But don't tell the wife. Right, obviously we've known each other a number of years, and when I was kind of sorting out the questions yesterday, I was trying to work out when, because I've got two very early memories. One of them is when you used to go down, when your dad used to go down and take you to Thornby Hall to hit balls, and I'd be there, and you kind of get in the way a little bit, but you'd go down to the other end.
Well, what really happened was the range. So you walked out the door to the range through the pro shop, and then you had to turn right to get the balls, and then there was about 30 bays to the right. And on bay one, where everybody had to get past, there was you with a tripod in the back that everybody had to wait for you to finish, and then they could actually move around and stuff, and had to like move the tripod out of the way. You could have gone anywhere, but you just went in the most awkward one.
Well, I needed the practice time. I was that bad. I needed to maximise my time down there.
I did always like your dedication, though. I appreciate your dedication.
Well, yeah. Shame I didn't have the talent, really. But so that was an early memory. Your dad taking you down there. I think like after school, you'd be down there every night hitting balls. But then I'd say when I first really got to meet you and spend a bit of time with you was on Harold's clinic. I think you were invited, weren't you, as a member of the Lancashire boys team at the time.
Well, what happened was, I remember it clear as day. Was I think I was playing something like the McAvoy Trophy, so I'd have been 12, maybe 12, 13, something like that. Was it? It might have been earlier than that, actually. No, it was earlier than that. I've got the second wind of the story. The first story was that I got invited, wasn't it? I'm thinking of the second time when I came and saw you. Where was your second studio?
Well, the first time you came, we were at the Royal Clifton Hotel.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
I was really young then, actually. I was like 10 or 11.
Yeah, you were pretty young.
Yeah, Harold was quite intimidating then.
Yes. In fact, I often think, like, because you were in a clinic. Harold at the time was only teaching clinics.
Yeah.
So you were invited, I think, and then there were 3 other sort of playing, hunters that were there of a range of handicaps. So I wonder if they kind of remember that was you in that clinic.
I don't know, but he was intimidating, and you used to get this folder, didn't you? This paper folder where you had to write, because he would check it at the end. So he would check it at the end, and I remember I was listening to this, and as a kid, I'd never really wrote stuff down before, and I was like, I don't know what parts to write down and stuff, and I didn't really know what to check in that, and I remember writing stuff down, and then the other thing I remember was that he had, because you had it on that slope.
Yeah.
Putting green was on a slope, and he said we did this task where if you were playing in foursomes and your partner's got the yips, and you've got this 5-footer, and it was the equivalent of a 4% slope or something at the time, and this one guy goes and taps it stone dead around, and I tried to hole it and missed the hole, knocked it 6-7 feet past, and
ended up in a wedding.
Yeah, it did. There was a wedding on, and so yeah, that was what I remember really. But a while ago.
It's a good few years, yeah.
You were the assistant.
I was literally the dog's body at the time.
I'm sure you were blonder
then. Yeah, I've had a bit of work done since, but right. I mean, so obviously that's a good few years ago, and we spent a bit of time. As you progressed as an amateur, didn't you? We'd meet up occasionally.
Yeah, well, the second time, which was the story I was thinking of, was playing in the McAvoy. So this is way later now, but I was 17. I'd had lessons between then, and then obviously, the way a career goes, you move in and out of stuff. But I remember playing at the McAvoy, and I had a terrible putting round, first round, and walked in a huff, signed my card, gave it in, signed for the wrong score, and got disqualified. But the whole point was that I'd putted that bad, and it'd send me into a fuzz. And I got in the car, and my dad said, "You're going for a putting lesson with Phil Kenyon." We'd basically said that's what you're doing. That week, I think I'd text or called or whatever, and you'd got me in and had a putting lesson. Changed my grip. Went to Donna. You let me take Donna out of the studio, and say it was a month later, 2 months later, I finished runner-up in the British Amateur.
Right.
They put in, and that was my second sort of memory of having a lesson, but literally changed my year around that.
Right, I can't recall. I don't recall that. I remember using Donna. I remember fitting you for that putter, because at the time, I think, or in and around that period, I think Henrik was using that.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
it was a great putter. I don't recall that one, but I know we see each other sort of sporadically, and you obviously went on turn pro, and you kind of went your own way for a few years. But I wanted to kind of just talk a little bit briefly about, I think it was 2014. You'd had a few years on tour then. I think the last time we'd done some work was at the back end of your first year on tour, wasn't it? One day. Yeah,
we were working on Challenge Tour. And obviously Challenge Tour is very different. I would play a few weeks, come home, and at Formby Hall, I would say, can I come in and you have a look and stuff? And I was using the Ghost. Again, that was another putter that you gave me. I basically got I've got like a long line of putters that I just robbed out your studio basically that you gave me and then took play with me, and then we were working on early days on tour. Yeah.
Well, then 2014, I think like you'd had a really good year there, and you were close to getting to the top 50 in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you really had much sort of coaching at that time.
Yeah.
At the end of 2014, correct me if I'm wrong, you decided that you were going to go in and improve your short game, and you were going to seek out some coaches to do stuff more constructively, week to week type stuff. Now, obviously, I was fortunate that you asked me with your putting, and you started doing some work with Pete Cowan on your short game. Now, at that time, you were doing really, really well, pretty much, off your own back. What was that decision based around at that time? Why was it you did that? What were you thinking?
Sort of, I'd say I've got like, I was growing up a bit, really. So I was going, I could do certain things on my own, and I've always been independent to a certain extent. But I would say when I really looked at myself and my game, I had great caddy on the bag, I had wobbly. But I just thought when I looked at myself and thought the next steps for me, I thought I needed certain areas to improve, and I couldn't do them on my own. Putting was very, very streaky, and obviously the weeks that I did well, I would putt well. But in general, I felt like the weeks that weren't great, my putting would cost me, and I never really had an in-between. I would put bad and sort of not really have that much control, or I'd put brilliant. And I was playing with, because I was getting close to the top 50 or in the top 50, I was playing with a lot of great players. I would play practice rounds. Like I'd seek out to play practice rounds with like a G Mac or a Henrik. Pete was obviously around them, and you were around Henrik. But I just thought, I was looking at them and I thought they're clearly a step ahead of me, at least a step, 2 steps, 3 steps. And I thought to get to the next level, I thought I need some coaching, and I would go for world-class coaches, basically. I still believe that if you need to improve something, you should get an expert in it. You should always ask for help. It'll definitely cuts down time, or there's a reason why they're the best at what they do, and they help players. That's just what I believe, really.
Yeah. Okay. So we kind of fast forward a little bit, 2015, and then 2016. You're kind of struggling a little bit with your game, and another memory that'll live with me, really, and obviously at that time it was an experience to be involved in. But I remember walking around Wentworth with you in the Pro-Am with Tomo, and at the time you'd gone back to see Tomo, and you were really struggling, weren't you? I mean, basically, couldn't get it off the tee, and I think Tomo was in a state of shock, blessed. And a distinct memory I have is actually Tomo calling a team meeting, saying, "Can we have some time out and go and sit on the range?" And at the end of like a day, when everyone's like been there all day and you just want to get home, Tomo had to have a sit down and just kind of talk about what had gone on. Well, then you after that you went on a good run. You got your game back a little bit, but the interesting thing from my perspective was that although you were struggling a little bit with your long game at that time, you actually improved your putting at the end of 2016.
I was putting really well, yeah.
In 2016, you were putting well, but not playing very well. And then you start to play better, but you hold nothing. End of 2016, hold nothing. I remember Finno coming on the bag, but then things kind of, you got some momentum somewhere. I look back and there was a particular, I think, Scottish Open. After a bunch of missed cuts, you held a good putt to make the cut. Yeah. And there was a little bit of impetus there and went on. But obviously 17, you've had a great year. But at what point did you feel like you were getting your game back? And then at what point did you think, actually, I've moved on another level here. This isn't me just playing well, but I've shifted to another level and this is where I'm at now? Or do you still feel you're just playing well?
Well, Wentworth, it's funny you go back to that in 16, because it's always a good point for me to talk about, because actually it was my lowest point completely at that stage. And you walked the pro-am. I hit 12 tee shots because it was, pick your best tee shot and play it. 12 tee shots and just walk the hole. Basically, I couldn't hit it. So, and I remember that meeting where we sat down. It was more like, Tomo said since he said, I didn't think you would. There was a point where I thought that I think he might be done. Like, I think he's not going to come back. And Finno came to watch that week, and he was driving in the car with me to the course. And he said, we were talking, and I said, to be honest, I've got 2 hours to go. I'm not sure I'm going to tee off. Like, this was the day after that meeting. You remember how bad it was, and then it was really, really pouring. I remember making the cut that week, but I chipped and putted my socks off, to make the cut on the mark, and I had nothing to give after making the cut. Shot hundreds over the weekend, was home for a Sunday roast at 12, something like that. But moving on, when you went from that low, there was only one way to go. As long as we kept going, there was only one way to go. And I remember you go back to Scotland, and it's funny you mention that, because there's certain points and you think, I forget about that. And that was such a buzz and a big feeling, because I held a great putt on 18, like a 10-footer, left to right to make a cut. And you forget how big some of them moments are to you. That's making a cut. And, sometimes you lose appreciation for that. And I think, we definitely started getting on an upward curve. And the thing about what I learned about the whole experience was I was trying to get my game back. I was actually doing all right. I started playing better, but my confidence was still so low that I didn't really believe it. So, I was playing better, but still didn't really have that kind of belief. I was still a bit edgy on the golf course. But, all I could do was keep playing, keep practicing. And then by the end of that year, I was playing really, really well. And like you say, I was holding nothing. But to be fair, there was a lot of time going in to try and keep it on the golf course, try and hit it. And I was still putting all right, but just going through a phase where I wasn't really holding much. And my results started getting better. But by the end of 16, I felt really, really good. I finished third in Hong Kong, played great, and then had a bit of time off. But sort of coming back, I'm fast forwarding, but I ended up winning in Abu Dhabi first week out. But that still stands as my most satisfying win of everything, just because I knew I felt really good, and the way I played, the way I felt on that Sunday of Abu Dhabi, I was so confident. And when you go 6 months prior, we've just spoke about the lowest moment I'd had since being a golfer, pretty much. To get to that point was felt good.
So that putt on 18 at Abu Dhabi is probably one of the most nervous situations I've been in, watching someone else putt.
Yeah.
I knew that it was so important for many different reasons. How nervous were you? I don't think we've ever really spoke too much about that putt, but actually, that was one of the questions I've got down here. Someone talked about how you deal with pressure when it comes to putting. That was there was a lot of pressure on that putt. What was it, about 5 foot? You pretty much knew you hold it, you win. What were you feeling? What was going through your mind? How did you deal with it?
I was nervous, but in control, and I always feel like you come to moments like that, and certain moments, and what has been a big factor in, look, I've missed putts to get in playoffs, I've missed putts to win tournaments, but I've also, if you ask me to remember them, I probably don't really think about them that much, but I remember the ones I hold, and there's always some kind of motivational factor coming in. I truly thought that was my time that week. So I was kind of confident over it. I'd putted very, very well throughout the week and felt very, very in control. So I was pretty sure I was going to start it online, and didn't really feel like I was going to miss. Which you get, you get moments like that are kind of created. The moments where you're not feeling great are much harder to deal with. But that one in particular, probably never even contemplated it missing. Just felt like it. I felt like it was very much my time. Hit some great putts on the back nine, and just wasn't. It was more, I was just very ready to make it. Cool.
Good. Cool. So you've had some, great performances since then. Similar question really. Like you had I remember the put on in France to win at France again. You left yourself a bit of a tough one there. Was that a similar scenario? When you put yourself in these situations, that sometimes it ever feels harder than another?
Yeah, that one. So in France, I didn't stroke it that great on the last day. Put it all right. I wasn't stroking it great, and there was a put on. So I used to have this. I used to do it, but I occasionally shut my eyes on putts, and on that back 9, there was a putt for birdie on 13. Shut my eyes on it for about 5 feet, and that one on the last 8 with my eyes shut.
Yeah.
Just because you can swing it poorly at times, and sometimes you don't stroke it as good as others. But I was still hitting. My putts were still fine. Yeah. But that one I wasn't as comfortable over. But I thought, again, it's a mechanism of not getting in my own way, really. But I'd set up and then shut my eyes and then let myself hit it and then take it from there.
Which I think is a good strategy. I mean, just to tap into that, because I think, some of the guys listening and hearing maybe struggle a bit with anxiety or get a bit uptight. That as a strategy, what do you actually felt that did for you? What's the benefit of that?
Well, it took me trying to guard it. It took me away from trying to guard it to the hole. And the first time I ever tried it was a few years prior to that. And it's an interesting one, really, because you're neither into target or mechanics in a way. You're kind of just completely out. So and I remember trying it, and I remember playing the US Open at Chambers Bay, and the greens were really, really bumpy. They were shocking, weren't they?
Yeah.
And, I remember deciding that week that anything inside 6 feet, I'm just going to shut my eyes and hit the putt. And basically, your true stroke comes out because you can't guide anything. And so I played a whole US Open that week with my eyes shut in there, which was again just something. Just something I basically decided to do. Worked out pretty well, and there's just occasional moments where I know that sometimes I would say if I've not stroked it as well, you can try and hole it or guide it down the line or try and control it a bit much. And I would say I've just learned from whatever reason I tried it for one time in my life, it helps me in those situations. And there's certain putts that you never feel comfortable on, certain horrible little putts, and I basically, if I shut my eyes, I knew I would stroke it freer.
Yeah.
And it's not always going to go in, but I knew that I was probably giving myself a better chance by not looking. And really, it's only about keeping your head down. People would say keep your head down, and it's just an extra version of that because you can't look.
So, Mark Ramsdale just said giving up control to gain control, which I think is a great way to put it, really.
Yeah.
So just kind of touching upon you and what you've done in an effort to improve your putting, there was a question here from Nigel Brook, and in particular he said, why did you change the pencil grip?
Do you want to say or me?
I'll let you. It's you're the star of the show, aren't you? So people are honest.
You're just the face, aren't you? You're just the face of it. Again, going back to when we started working, I had a conventional grip, I had a conventional putter, and I've always worked hard on whatever I'm doing, and to be, my arc of my stroke, which was what we did a lot of work on. I always have a tendency to get it a bit inside, and we worked a lot on this arc. And I had a good stroke, but what I lacked was a constant, consistent rotation of the putter. So at times I would leave it open, at times I would roll it a bit, and basically all that means is that my start lines weren't consistent enough, so I could hit putts and look up and think, well, I didn't really feel like that, or was that a push? And the winter of 2015, we went in the studio and tried, cack-handed, palms together, tried a number of grips, and without even having to do anything, when I went to the pencil grip, my rotation of the putter just went so much better. It just completely calmed down. The putter was under control, and just looked at it. The logical choice was to just say, well, I'm going to put like that, and I'll practice with it, or I'll practice with it over Christmas, and that was, that's what it's always done for me. Just controlled the rotation of the putter.
So for the coaches that are listening, we used Sam Putt Lab, didn't we, to sort of measure and test a few different grips that we'd identified that could potentially help you. And one thing, generally, like, your numbers would be good, apart from at times the consistency of rotation, but that grip change for you really nailed that parameter, didn't it?
Massively, yeah.
Which, as a consequence, you could feel out on the course or in practice. So, I mean, for me, that's, I know Finn and I were chatting the other day at the end of 2016, during a couple of events when you weren't holding anything, you did sort of change a couple of times, didn't you, away from that grip? But for the most part, you still...
Irrational. Maybe slightly irrational, but you try things.
Well, you're a golfer, so you can't be rational all the time. It's an emotional game, Thomas. So, yeah, I mean, I think, like, that grip has helped you, visibly seen the benefit and the confidence it's given you. So, and I think, like 10, 15 years ago, you probably looked at as a bit of a, loose cannon if you gripped it left or right. But nowadays, people have all sorts of grips, don't they?
Yeah, and especially the claw grip or pencil grip, that's kind of, I feel like if you look at on tour, it's became the new left below right. Like, everybody used to, put conventional, but if they weren't quite putting well, they would go left below right. And I feel like almost claw is the step before that now. Like, people go to that very quickly, and it has made a massive difference for me. And I can. The thing is, if you when you go back to pressure situations or putting out there, even if I've had a bad putting day, I remember not controlling the face, and I remember like not having a start line, and having that a lot more means that I never feel as bad as what it might look, or might not hold anything, but I never feel that sort of lost into what I've done. I just feel like I might get annoyed, or I might say, Phil, like, that was terrible today or something, but in reality I feel like if we go and practice, like, we can improve it rather than being lost.
I think it's hard to hold putts. There's a lot of factors involved, aren't there? But I think at your level, when it's clear that you can't start the ball in line, that's probably the biggest frustration, isn't it?
Well, massively, and we play on such, some greens that are so quick and slopey, it's an absolute nightmare if you can't start it on line. Yeah.
So, got another question here then, which is obviously just about you, what you do with your putting. So, Graham Pierce has asked, I'd like to ask Tommy how much Aim Point Express has helped him with his green reading.
I'll let Finno do it more than me. Finno's got pretty much the best aim point feet on planet Earth.
He's like the human level.
He's like the human level, isn't he? He's got like flat feet, which works perfect. But I remember, I remember learning it, and as a golfer, it's your job anyway. But you always want to expand your knowledge. And I remember going into aim point, and it does help. And the thing, you never, there's always putts that that are tricky to read or something, and by using Aim Point Express, it always gave me a decision, almost. You can always fit, if you feel something in your feet, it just makes that decision easier, and I think it was a consistent structure to part of the routine and part of reading greens. I think it went in as a constant in there, and it works. Like, it literally works. With all the green books we have on tour, if you want to use them, everything sort of goes towards using that model in a way, and it definitely makes things easier.
Well, that would be one of the things that I think I've seen. I mean, obviously the system's got to work in a sense that you've got to have a fairly accurate read.
Yeah.
That's the number one. But I also think, you know yourself more than anyone about the psychology of putting. And I think it helps massively from a decision-making, process.
Yeah.
And having something that you can commit to, a very, concise process to go through. It helps you formulate a decision. And if you're committed, the read doesn't have to be perfect, does it? But if you're committed to a fairly functional read, then you've got a chance to start it online and match your speed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think you taught at me originally. I've been to see Mark Sweeney a couple of times, and actually, he's just such an enthusiastic guy about what he does. It's actually really good to spend time with him. You come away from it thinking, "Oh my god, this is amazing! I'm gonna hole every putt." But I've really liked it for a decision making point of view. Like it definitely helps, and it's good if you can do it brisk and feel precise and feel confident with it. All of a sudden, like these reads start coming to you, and it helps with the visualization as well. You've got a start line, you can and then you can track the putting from there. It helps with both of those sides of it.
So a lot of people that'll be on here, obviously, will watch you when you're competing at tournaments. They know Finno. They'll see you going about your routine on the greens, and they'll see how sort of involved Finno is in that. And we've mentioned about him being like the human level. Could you just talk about how you use Ian within that process and why? So for me, I sort of have a thing where I want as much information as possible. Can be a good thing, can be a bad thing. And I think, when reading the putts sort of started getting Finno a bit involved more, and I felt like if, we've both made a decision, I felt like it helped me commit to the putt originally. So, some people would always say, look, one read is better than two in a way, because, if you can only go with your decision, if you don't match up, then it causes confusion. But I think for me, I've always found that, two eyes are better than one. And I felt like if we've both gone in there and chose a line and committed, then I felt better that way. As it went on, Finno was clearly a lot better at aim point. Oh, drop the phone. Finno was clearly a lot better at aim point than me in terms of his feet were so much more consistent than me. So that then helped me. If he's reading it with his feet, I can just spend my time looking at it with my eyes and seeing how I feel and how the putt looks. And, there's going to, if Finno comes with a read and feels it's a 1%, I would say, you've been on the putting green with us. Finno's right a lot of the time. And there's always going to be times where he gets it wrong, or I'm going to get it wrong. That's the nature of it. That's reading putts. That's choosing a club. That's, whatever it is. But knowing that he's very good at it, knowing that we practice it on a daily basis very consistently, it's a very good habit, and it helps me when we've made that decision. I stand over that putt and know we've made that decision. Finno's very consistent with his feet. I can track that putt. I can spend my time doing that, and then by the time walking into the putt, I'm very convinced about what line we're going to take. Yeah, and I think to give Ian some credit as well, it's a skill that he's learned since he started caddying. And Finno will be there. There'll be some mornings there. He'll be there like 2 hours before you kick off, and he'll be practicing he'll be calibrating his feet on the putting green, only getting his feet attuned to the slope before you go out. Andy Coop says, "Stop bigging Finno up. He'll never hear the end of it." What's Finno like at putting? Well, unfortunately, he's a great green reader, but can't put.
Streaky, I would say.
No. So here's an interesting question because of a couple of experiences that we've had, and put fitting's an interesting area for me because I see a lot of really poor concepts out there, and a lot of bull spoken about putter fitting. But Ken Hardy said, "Do you ever go for a putter fitting, or do you just pick up a putter you like and trust your own judgment with it?" So how have you gone about putter fitting, and what have your experiences? What have you learned about that for you?
Bit of both. I would say I grew up always kind of picking a putter that I liked, and then just stroking it from there, going out and practicing on the green and figuring it out and working it out. I've had the same putter now for 3 years. I think it's very important that your putter matches your stroke, otherwise it's just completely counterproductive. And with the technology out there now, it just seems silly that you wouldn't. For instance, and as a golfer, I'm a player, and I'll look at a putter and I'll know what I like the look of, or I'll know what feels good, but I wouldn't necessarily know what would be right for me in a sense. And I know you're laughing because you're gonna.
I'm not going to say anything.
I could guess what you're going to say about 2-ball putters.
Well, I do have a question which you might answer 2-ball too, but
I mean, we've experimented at different times with a putter that might help me technically with something that we're aiming to do. But probably what we have sort of learned and decided is that there is a putter that suits me very, very well. And if my putting ever goes off tangent on my technique, it's about working back to what my stroke is and what my putting is, and it's not the putter. The putter is, has been in my bag for a long time, and it should stay that way. And I've won all my wins since coming back since that first in Abu Dhabi. I've been with the same putter basically. So whenever I've changed, it's not necessarily made me better, although we've done it for the right reasons.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of sort of quick-fire questions here. And the first one is, what's your gamer? So what is that putter that your game that you go back to?
It's a terrible answer. I don't know what it is. Is it a white? What number? What is it? White hot? Is it a number 3?
I don't know.
I don't know.
But it's like a little gooseneck blade, isn't it?
It's a gooseneck, yeah. Basically, General Odyssey blade type. And my first week with it was actually British Masters in 2016. But yeah, like the actual model of it, I don't know.
Well, you don't need to know as long as it behaves itself.
No, I never look at the bottom of it. I only look at the top.
Well, that top's pretty scuffed. And I did see you sort of fiddling around with something around the pin today, and I was like, you need to be careful with that putter.
So
that's like device, getting the ball out the hole. Use a wedge for that. White hot 3.
I'll do a Matty Cox when he used to putt with 2 putters. I'll bring like the broom handle on just to scoop the ball out the hole and putt with the short one.
Well, as long as you don't emulate Coxey's short game, that's fine. Yeah, so that was the next question, really. What putter would you like to use, but you can't?
Well, it would be. I mean, it probably would be a 2-ball. 2-balls are like my favourite thing. A bullseye kind of thing. I always like just for sentimental values. Just love the putter, but 2-ball is definitely like my number 1 putter. Love it.
You are a little bit of a putter connoisseur on the slider, don't you? You do like a decent putter just to have. And
I like golf clubs, yeah, but I do like I collect putters quite a bit.
Yeah. Right. So, what's your best ever putting round? If you could nominate one round, and you think, there you go, that was it.
Probably. Do you know what? It's funny, really, because I can think of a couple. I'd say my most successful putting rounds, I've probably got a couple around the old course at St Andrews where when I get my iron on them greens, I feel great and I feel like I hold a lot of putts. But the US Open at Shinnecock is a funny one because that, as a putting round, was brilliant, but there's only one putt that I ever think about. I know. But when I think about it, from starting off, holing a monster on 2, a good putt on 3, holing putts throughout the round, getting it going, getting really hot, and it was an amazing putting round on really tough greens, on US Open greens, but that one is always looked at as just one putt that slipped by. But
Finno's feet weren't very good then, were they?
He blames you for that one because you spoke about us on the tilt on a slope.
I forget now.
Don't worry.
It's so long ago now. I think we've moved on from
moved
that.
on now.
And if you could, if there is one, but is there a best putt ever? Is there one particular putt that you look back and think, you know what, the scenario, the situation, the difficulty of the putt, is there a memorable putt that you've had so far in your career that you just think, yeah?
I actually, do you know what? I thought about this today and I had an answer. I was thinking, what was the best putt I've ever hit? And I literally had an answer. And it's
obviously memorable.
Well, it's just fallen out of my mind, but it was a really, really good one as well. And I'm trying to think of it. Do you know, the thing is with putting, the best putts are generally short putts are the hardest under pressure, without doubt. So I would say probably my most memorable moment would probably be the Ryder Cup on 16 on the Friday. you know,
Is
like
that the famous picture, the busted gonads picture.
Famous picture, yeah. Let the gonads drop, and as a moment and as a putt, like amazing putt and one that was tracking for about 10 feet. So it was an amazing moment. But like the hardest putts and the putts that probably give you the most satisfaction are like the 5-6 footers that you hold to either win a tournament or like sort of big moment putts that you are completely in control of in a way. It's not like you hit like a and that if they miss, it's kind of one that the percentages say you should hole it really. So like it's an expectation that's added on a putt. It's not like a 15 footer that you might hit pure, but can miss or go in. It's one of them. But 5-6 footers, 4, 5, 6 footers under pressure are definitely the most satisfying.
Yeah. So Paxton O'Connor just basically said why are those short putts like so much more difficult. Is that have you just alluded to that in terms of expectation there? Because you should hole them.
Well, yeah, for sure. And even practicing on a putting green, you could all. Well, I do it literally on my putting green here. I'll put from 15 feet, hole like 3 in a row. But as soon as you go to 5 feet or 4 feet, well, these ones should basically people say, well, you should never miss them. Like they should go in and just. And percentages do say you should hole them really, but I just think with you being in closer proximity and the odds being higher, obviously. If the odds are higher and the probability is higher, then if you do miss one, which is like you're going to miss one, it just feels worse, or it seems more. And when you have a shortish putt to win a tournament and it's your chance, obviously I'd rather have a 5 footer than a 15 footer, but like you miss it, you've missed a chance in that. So it is. I think it's expectation and the probability, and that. Always people use words like I should hole these or. All of that, and it never helps, but it's true, but doesn't help, and that's just what puts more pressure on them. Yeah.
Now, I mean, the Ryder, to go back to the Ryder Cup story, I thought, for me, obviously I'm lucky to work with you and Fran, but to see you both go out, do what you did, and, you both put it great, didn't you? Play. I mean, how many times did you play Tiger? Was that, you played twice in what?
We played him 3 times in the 2 days, yeah. He actually did an interview afterwards, didn't he? And he said, how you feel? He said, I'm pissed off. They haven't missed a putt inside 10 feet for 2 days, either of them. And I was thinking, you've done that to people for 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, suck it up. Right. So here's one, because I know that you do pay attention to what goes on. You look at other players who are successful, and there's a saying that I love that success leaves clues. But, when you look at your guys that you play and compete with, do you ever look at someone and think, you know what, I love what he does as a putter? Is there anyone there that'd be like your favourite putter where if you could trade places and have him putt for you, you'd think, I like what he does?
Yeah, different people for different reasons. I would say, pretty much everybody has a different routine that goes at different pace. So, if you look at Matt Fitzpatrick has like a brisk sort of routine and pace to everything he does. Puts amazing. Love watching him putt. Tiger, bit more methodical, very controlled. Releases the putter amazing. Even if he misses a putt, just looks like it's a good putt. And then you have someone like a Kuchar, who is completely his own style. A lot of people go to arm lock now, but nobody strokes it anything like Kuchar, who has his own stroke. But again, the way he goes about it, his own pace. When he's reading a putt, picks his line, stands over, and he's got a very good start line. I mean, to be honest, I love the way Fitzy puts.
Yeah,
I love watching him on a green. I love how he goes about it. He looks excited when he gets on a green, and puts well, like really, really well.
Yeah, no, a good putter. So then, if you had a 5 footer and you had one person to choose other than yourself,
no, I was going to say me.
Well, of course, that's why. And you can't say Tiger either, because I think everyone's going to say Tiger. So
can I say Jack Nicklaus?
Well, you can say Jack Nicklaus if you want.
Even now?
Yeah.
Jack Nicklaus.
You just said it. There you go. So if you had a 5 footer, you'd pick Jack Nicklaus.
Yeah, he'd box it for me.
Are you sure? Has he done much in his career?
I'd pick Finno.
Would you?
Mm.
What about the
Finno
free
Broom
cutter coming
handling
back? Right, so here's one for you. I know your favourite major's the Open, okay, and you've alluded to me at times. If you won the Open, you'd be quite happily retire after. So, what would it be? Winning the Open or Everton winning the league? What would you choose?
Oh, me winning the Open.
Really?
Yeah.
God, I didn't think you loved golf that much.
I do, yeah. I love the Open that much.
All right, what about winning the Open?
Or Liverpool getting relegated?
Yeah.
Liverpool getting relegated.
Really? Finno would be loving that, won't he?
I'm not that bitter.
No, I know you're not. Right, so what's this is a question. What's Finno's biggest asset as a caddy? I should have said most annoying habit. That would be a bit fair, wouldn't it? There we go. What's Finno's biggest asset as a caddy, and what's his most annoying habit?
His biggest asset, hopefully agrees with that, is our relationship. Hopefully he feels free to say what he thinks, and I would say there's never a moment or a position that we'll be in where hopefully he doesn't have the confidence to either pull me off a shot if he thinks something's wrong, or pick a decision, because we are that close basically. So I would say that his biggest asset is basically our relationship. So,
but I don't think that counts, because I don't think Finno's like frightened of speaking his mind in any scenario, whether it's friend or.
Is a little pussycat Finno?
Is he?
Yeah.
Well, I've not seen that side of him. He intimidates me. What's his most annoying habit then?
Speaking his mind.
Yeah, okay. I like that. Brilliant. Right, so a little question here. So Nick Lofthouse has asked, what would be your best short putting drill? If you wanted to improve your putting, what would be your best short putting drill? And what would be your best long putting pace drill? What would you recommend?
So short putting, well, there's either two ways I look at it. Either you could hold a bunch of like 3-footers, like ones that you'll constantly see the ball go in.
Yeah.
Or 5 feet. The actual distance of 5 feet is like the biggest gainer or loser really in putting distance. So either circle around I would say either do them really. If you're prepared to put the effort in and work in, I would get 5 feet and in and hit a lot of those putts where you can make a big gain. Or if you want to see the ball go in, I'll go shorter and just build up that visual of putts going in. Long putt pace drill. I like building back in pace. So we do a drill where you've got the tee. Say it's between 1 foot and 3 foot behind the hole, and try and get it to that pace. And I always like building back from 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 feet. I like doing that and working your way back to a certain distance and getting that feel and that flow. And it's hard to say really. You can't do much better than it in like putts, like varying your putts around the green really. Go and stand 50 feet away from the hole and visualise it and hit your putt, and go through your routine and be really focused in what you're doing, and be aware of what your feelings are when you're doing it. Yeah,
no, I think you hit the nail on the head there, from hitting as many different putts as you can. So like adding variability in your practice, so you've always got to go through a new read with a new intention, and then fully committed routine.
Yeah.
You're practicing hole and putts, putting all the skills together, aren't you? So whether that be short or long or whatever. No, you've sort of, before we run out of time, one last question, because I think this is quite good. And you talked about the mental side of things, but Chris Guy has asked, is there anything specific that you do with regards to your mind? Is there any drills that you do to quieten your mind or work on that aspect of your performance?
Always working on that side. And it is the thing with the mind is like you'll always get varying pieces of advice, so you'll always get things you try and do. And I think what people don't give it enough credit for is that, you put in technique. If you practiced it once, it would still waver. You're going to come out and you're going to have sort of dodgy strokes on it at times. And it's the same mentally. Like, your mind's going to be great one day. The next day, it's not going to work quite as good. And just I've always found, by the way, everybody has their times where they either talk terrible to themselves or the body language is poor, and you are going to slip out of it at times. But I think the more positive your language is, the more decisive it is. I always try and tell my kids to never say anything negative, or if they say don't do something, I try and reverse it into do something. And what I do like doing is writing what I think a good routine is or what I think a bad routine is. Because you might not think it, but if you actually write it down, so I've done it, and it's so easy to write a bad one down. Bad one would be, I'm thinking, well, I think it's right edge, but I might give it a bit more. No, I'll go right edge and hit it firmer. I missed one on the last green, and you think of all that, and if you flip that, and I learned this by just jotting things down, and a good one, right edge, that's my line, go, and it's like so quiet. And the more you give examples to yourself of what a good one is or a bad one, the more you just learn, and hopefully it becomes a better habit for you.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. You can write down literally what a good routine would look like, rehearse, memorize that, picture what it looks like, and then when you go out the green, practice it. And that's why I don't see enough like club golfers practice with intent like that. They'll free balls around the hole, hit the same putt from the same position, each time.
Yeah.
They're not separating, the read and then the intention and the purpose of the routine. So, no, that's a good tip, good little insight. Listen, mate, we're going to get kicked off in a minute. Just wanted to say thank you, as ever. Always
appreciate it, Phil.
Catch up. So I'll speak to you over the weekend, no doubt. But thanks everyone for tuning in. Hope you've got a few decent insights. And
thanks for listening.